Hi, I'm Greg, and welcome to another episode of Passion of the Geeks Unplugged. We're still in our summer programming, and that's why I'm trying to keep it short and try something, similar but different today. In episode 46, I talked about some classics that I like to read in my classroom, kind of classics that stood the test of time, books that I think, still have something to tell and teach us today. Today, I'm going to look at relatively new books that I think, or at least I hope, that they will stick with me or stick with classrooms for many, many years to come. So most of the books, I'm going to talk about 5 books today. Most of these books are relatively new. I would argue there's maybe 1 or 2 that one could argue, they're not that new anymore. But this is my show. So if you want to complain, do that in the comments. So because they're new books, I don't want to spoil too much about them. So I'm not going to go too deep into it. But this is Unplugged. I'm trying to keep it short. So that shouldn't be too much of a problem. One additional thing about these 5 books that I'm going to talk about today. They all have pretty good adaptations. So you can read them, which I would definitely recommend. But all of these 5 books, they have either... one of these books is actually a pretty good television show that adapts the story. And the other 4 have pretty good movies that... if you don't have the time to read the book, which again, I would highly recommend, at least watch the movie. So, it's summer. What else do you have to do? Traveling, not really a good idea. But anyway, these are my 5 books, or not my 5 books, kind of 5 books. There are more. I think you should give a shot, and that my students seem to have liked as well. I've read, 3 of these 5 I've read with classes, 2 I'm planning to read with classes. Let's start with the first one. I think I've talked about this in our main show already. It's The Underground Railroad by Colson Whitehead. And I'm just going to read a little bit from the cover here. Cora is a young slave on a cotton plantation in Georgia, an outcast even among her fellow Africans. She's on the cusp of womanhood, where greater pain awaits. And so when Caesar, a slave who has recently arrived from Virginia, urges her to join him on the Underground Railroad, she seizes the opportunity and escapes with him. So, on the one hand, this sounds like, a story about the Black experience, about slavery. And what Colson Whitehead does here, he, at least according to my point of view, or kind of at least how I experienced the book, he manages to capture the life of slaves during these times very, very well. And he uses kind of magical realism to achieve that. In his version, the Underground Railroad is actually an underground railroad, a real railroad, and not just, people helping people or kind of safe houses and stuff like that. And what the book does that I think is very, very interesting, you have a certain opinion of certain people, and the more information you get, some of your opinions about certain people, they change in quite a drastic way. So I would argue it's an excellent book to learn about Black experience, if one could call it that. So I hope I don't get canceled for this, but I would highly recommend it. I would also recommend the television show that's on Amazon or Prime Video by Barry Jenkins of Moonlight fame. And it's not an easy watch. So it's the whole show is on Prime. You can binge it, but I would not recommend binging this because I actually think this is a TV show or this is a show where you need a little bit of time between episodes to think, because it's sometimes brutal, beautifully shot, but very, very brutal, and kind of emotionally quite heavy. So I highly recommend The Underground Railroad by Colson Whitehead as a book and as a TV show. Number 2, something very, very different. The Beach by Alex Garland. Richard lands in East Asia in search of an earthly utopia. In Thailand, he is given a map promising an unknown island, a secluded beach, and a new way of life. What Richard finds when he gets there is breathtaking, more extraordinary, more frightening than his wildest dreams. But how long can paradise survive here on Earth? And what length will Richard go to in order to save it? So, The Beach, the novel, and the movie by Danny Boyle are obviously quite famous. I have to admit, I like the movie, but the book is a lot better. I think the movie glosses over a few things that make the book stand out. And kind of for me, and that's kind of the stark contrast between, let's say, what I think is an important book like The Underground Railroad. The Beach is more about white people problems, kind of the problems of people who are, let's be honest, entitled. So this Richard, the Leonardo DiCaprio character in the movie, I mean, he's basically just bored and tries to, find something that doesn't bore him, tries to find something or a place where he can be himself, whatever that is. And the interesting thing is that obviously, even if this is a kind of utopia or the kind of utopia he finds at the beach, it's obviously people who ruin it. So it tells me that if you have a perfect place, too many entitled white kids will definitely ruin it. And I mean, obviously that comes through in the movie as well, but the novel does a better job of hitting home that message. And kind of just totally personal opinion, I think The Beach is the better version of Lord of the Flies. I get a Lord of the Flies vibe when I read The Beach, but maybe that's just me. Moving on, third book on the list, and I think I can keep this one short because I think this one is the oldest of the bunch here. Fight Club by Chuck Palahniuk. There is not that much to say about this one. Chuck Palahniuk showed himself to be his generation's most visionary satirist in his first book, Fight Club. Fight Club's estranged narrator leaves his lackluster job when he comes under the thrall of Tyler Durden, an enigmatic young man who holds secret after-hours boxing matches in the basements of bars. There, two men fight as long as they have to. This is a glorious original work that exposes the darkness at the core of our modern world. And remember, the first rule about Fight Club is you don't talk about Fight Club. Again, bored white dudes, entitled white dudes, and the problems they can cause. Maybe this is one of the few cases where the movie is actually a little bit more memorable, a little bit more mesmerizing than the book. The book is really, really good. The book has kind of more time to go into, or takes more time to go into the psyche of the narrator. We learn a few things more about him. We kind of are with him a little bit more. But obviously the twist of the novel that I'm not going to give away works very, very well when done visually. And in the novel, it's just something that happens and you read it and what did I just read? And definitely I highly recommend both of it. I mean, Toxic Masculinity, this book is, even though it is a few years old, I'm just checking, it's from somewhere in the late 90s, I think, isn't it? 96. And definitely topic-wise, totally on point. Number 4, this is something very, very different. It's a book called The Room, or just Room by Emma Donoghue. Jack is 5 years old and lives in a room, alone with his mom. This one room is their world, and they never leave it, and only one other person ever enters it. Despite this terrible existence, they discover freedom and sometimes joy within these limits. but their prison is still horribly unjust and have somehow to find a way out. It's very, very difficult to talk about Room without giving too much away. So basically what happens is Jack and Ma was kidnapped by a guy, and Jack is obviously the son of Ma with the kidnapper. And basically their whole existence has just been living in room, sleeping in bed, sitting at table. It's a very, very strange existence. And we learn about this existence through the eyes and through the voice of Jack. And it's a very, very interesting read because the book is written in the voice of Jack with Jack's vocabulary. And some people find this really, really annoying. I personally find it very, very interesting, and it captured me immediately. So Room, definitely a book with... it's not an easy read. Well, the language is actually quite easy, but emotionally quite heavy. Obviously, as the book cover says, Ma and Jack are trying to escape. I don't want to give away too much, but I mean, they manage to escape, but that's when the whole problems, or that's when their problems actually really begin to start, and kind of we learn what an emotional toll their time in Room actually took. So Room by Emma Donoghue, definitely recommend this one as well. Very interesting language, special language. The movie is quite interesting as well. Brie Larson stars as the main character there, and if I remember it correctly, she actually did. I think she won the Academy Award for it, but just have to look that up. That's how good I'm prepared for these unplugged episodes. Room movie. The movie is from 2015, directed by Lenny Abrahamson, with a screenplay by Emma Donoghue herself. And did she win it? What does it say? I know they just received some nominations. They didn't win. But definitely worth your time as well. Last but not least, The White Tiger by Aravind Adiga. Balaram Halavi is a rare phenomenon in India. He's one of the very few to come from the rural poverty of the darkness to the blinding lights of India's new economy in Bangalore, and establish his place as an entrepreneur there. When he hears that Wen Jiabao, the Prime Minister of the People's Republic of China, plans to visit India to have a look at Indian entrepreneurship, he decides to write him a series of letters telling his own story. It's a darkly humorous story, sometimes even a violent story. An individual story which nonetheless gives us a glimpse of the big picture in modern India. It tells the tale of India's rise to a new global economy, looks at India's struggle with corruption in politics and elsewhere, and contrasts the grim realities of life and death for India's poor with the wasteful luxury of India's new American-educated ultra-rich upper classes. But above all, it's the compelling story of a survivor against the odds, a real white tiger. This is a really interesting book, so kind of to give you a little bit of context. The books I read in class, obviously most of the books are either British or American, but I'm trying to make a conscious effort to include books from other English-speaking regions, other English-speaking countries as well. So I try to put new books into my rotation, as I call it. I had kind of quite a good time with Q&A, the novel that Slumdog Millionaire is based on. But I've recently read this one. I recently read The White Tiger, and I really like this one as well because those of you who know Q&A, the novel that Slumdog Millionaire is based on, the movie and the book are very, very different. They're because the book is more like a series of vignettes, a series of short stories, a series of encounters that kind of, when they fit together, tell the story of the life of the main character there. What the White Tiger does a little bit better, it tells, even though there are obviously kind of vignettes and or kind of little stories within the story as well, but it is more like there is a through line, there is an arc that's a more visible arc here, and it's very, very funny. It's very, how should I put it? Yeah, as the cover says, it's sometimes really violent, and you're not really sure if you should root for the main character or not, because he does some things that are, I mean, obviously questionable. I mean, you understand him because, he obviously has reasons, but let's just say he does some things that are really bad, but nevertheless he grows on you, which kind of sounds silly, but I think that's what, at least for me, made the book so interesting. So if you want to learn a little bit about India, if you want to learn get a glimpse into the Indian experience, especially of the poor people in India, The White Tiger is definitely worth a read. And there's a pretty good movie adaptation on Netflix as well. It actually came out, I think, last year. Again, me Googling. No, I don't want The White Tiger. That's Siegfried and Roy, obviously. I mean, come on. White Tiger movie. Yeah, it's actually it's a 2021 movie came out this year. So it's directed by Ramin Barani, written as well, and it's, I mean, obviously again the book is more thorough. You get more out of the book, but the movie is really, really good, and it was the screenplay was nominated for Best Adapted Screenplay. So definitely worth your time as well. So these are the 5. So again, Underground Railroad, The Beach, Fight Club, Room, and The White Tiger. 5 books with what I think some kind of interesting subject matters, interesting or different experiences that at least I think are worth discussing in the classroom, or maybe just for you either reading them over summer or maybe having a look at the movie versions. Most of them should be available somewhere, or on DVD, or for rent on a VOD service or whatever. Okay, this is it for this week. Please like, share, and subscribe to our little podcast here. We're on all major podcasting services and on www.passionofthegeeks.com. We would very like for you to send in some questions or some suggestions for topics or whatever. You can do that to passionofthegeeks@gmail.com. And we're also on Twitter @PassionOTGeeks. Take care.